A Matter of Price, Part 5. The day was sunny and oddly pleasant. A fresh breeze blew from the east and carried the stench of the city far away from the mourning grounds. Conan stood amongst a crowd of Zamorin's. All were dressed in black for mourning. Conan, lacking anything dark he wished to be seen in during the day, had worn a dark cloak. He had not yet had a full night's sleep, having had much to do to prepare for his friend's funeral. He had not bothered to check on the whereabouts of the girl they had sold for their lives for. He was afraid that if he did so, it would speed Derlemont's discovery of her location. So Conan had mourned by arranging the burials of his friends and the disposal of their bodies. Kokona had made no arrangements, so the city had burned her body on a pyre. Conan had managed to take locks of her hair before it had been discovered, which he intended to use later this very day to commemorate her. Parkar's body had been claimed by his family, and Marcellus and Tyrell had spent coin ahead of time for her funeral. It was at this burial that Conan now stood as a somber witness. The ceremony was a proper Mitran one. The cult of Mitra was small here, yet the congregants all arrived to say goodbye to their fellow worshippers. Conan endured the speeches made by the priest and his call for all to turn to morality and clean living. It was clear to him that the man had never known the two men whom he buried today. Not really. Conan could not decide whether or not to blame the priest, for Marcellus had been an expert in manipulation. When the tiny crowd parted, the priest motioned for Conan to come to the gravesite. Conan approached and let a bit of earth fall from his hand upon the shroud in which Marcellus lay next to Tyrell. "May you find the peace in death that evaded you in life," Conan said. Then he walked away as all the worshippers did the same. Conan was about to leave the graveyard when the priest's acolyte stopped him. A young girl handed him a package and a sack full of clothes, none of which would fit the burly Cimmerian. "These were in his will. They are fine raiments here, and coin for you, as well as Marcellus' book of the Advice of Mitra. I hope you will read them," the acolyte said. Conan only nodded. He wondered why civilized people believed words solved all problems. In his own life it had been actions, not words, that changed one's fate. He passed by the grave and walked alone to a place where Parkar's body had been interred. The little thief had turned out to be the errant son of a prominent family in Arinjun. His mourners even now wailed to the sky for his loss, and a train of the priests of Zath, the very priests from which he had gutted and robbed, were forced to celebrate his life with full honors and fanfare. "Even in death, you had to get in one last prank," Conan said to his dead friend. He wished Parkar had told him his story. Now Conan would have to imagine it. Conan laughed as he realized that what he imagined would likely be closer to the truth than anything that Parkar spun in his autobiography. Now Derlemont himself was forced to stand before the public and tell of the great acts of charity Parkar had done for the poor, treating their wounds for free. Now Conan knew what it was Parkar had done with his share of the wealth. Trying to appear calm and honestly grieved, the priest of Zath spoke with his arms upraised and called on Zath to give Parkar a place of honor amongst the dead. The priest saw Conan across the distance. Conan smiled at the man, and the priest, fuming inwardly, had to return to addressing the masses. Conan left the graveyard then and mounted his horse. He had one more duty to perform for his friends today. He kicked the horse's flanks and sped away, out into the wilderness. He rode until he came to the top of a hill that he had a commanding view of all the countryside. Once there, he withdrew locks of Kokona's hair. He had found a few Hyrcanians in the city who had informed him of the burial customs of her tribe. He had no time or access to the body to lift her body to the sky atop a wooden lattice. Yet an older rite of her people gave him a chance to speed her soul along to wherever it was destined to go. He held up her hair and gave out a great yell as he tossed the hair into the air. A breeze caught the locks and they traveled on the wind. He watched them disappear from his sight. His heart was heavier than he had thought it would be. He had only known Marcellus, Tyrell, Kokona, and little Parkar for a short time, yet in their company he had found a camaraderie that was unexpected. For Garipar, Conan could do nothing. The man had no family to care for his body, and his co-religionists had no desire to send him to their afterlife with any honors. Conan had heard that the body had been torn apart in the street by dogs and desperate poor Zamorins. He had even seen one woman wearing one of the swordsman's chakrams as a medallion, unaware of its purpose. No man could know what came after breath stopped. Conan hoped that the tales he had been told of a land of endless mist and ice awaiting the dead were false. He hoped that Marcellus and Tyrell had found their paradisial fields, that Kokona roamed an endless steppe with the grey wolf of her people, and that Parkar escaped the webs of the spider god and found some more pleasant afterlife abode. But whatever came after death, it had not yet come for him, and Conan knew that his compatriots were not the kind to expect him to grieve. He glanced back to Arinjun where the lights were beginning to be lit. There waited women to be wooed and riches to be won. The best requiem he could give his fallen friends was to live as fully as they had. He kicked his horse's flanks and rode back for the city, prepared to wrest from it all that it had to offer. Writer's Notes. Marvel Comics' Savage Sword of Conan depicted the Aquilonian styles and names as being that of the late Roman Republic. I am fully aware that many fans consider a look more akin to medieval France as appropriate. Yet Howard himself often gave his Aquilonians Romanesque sounding names. So I have gone with the assumption that on the western side of the Aquilonia, one finds more Frankish and Germanic cultures, and on its eastern side one finds Romanesque influences. Kokona's name is a modification of a real-world Mongol name. Parkar is a modification of a Turkish name, as is Derle-Mok. Garupar's name came from a modification of the Hindu deity known as Garuda. His depiction as let me repeat that. Garupar's name came as a modification of the Hindu deity known as Garuda. Garupar's depiction is a kind of proto-Sikh, and the combination of his weaponry and turban came from modern-day Sikh tradition of practicing with traditional weaponry, which they called Gatka. The chakram is a weapon that is renowned in Indian history, and skilled users of it can indeed flick a chakram in a series of blows solely using their fingers, on which they have maintained the chakram spinning. I have seen them sink them into watermelons at ranges of up to 100 feet and rapidly throw them. Against unarmored or lightly armored foes, the weapons would have been devastating. They come in various sizes and weights, and many masters of the art can wear them like bracelets or upon strings ready for throwing.